Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm John Johnson.
And you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic
Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, comics we want to read, and everything in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
All right, we're back.
Yeah,
welcome to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. How was your week, John?
It was good. It was it felt a little longer than normal, but
yeah.
It's the Texas heat, I guess.
Mine felt weird too. I had to go to San Antonio this week, so that was annoying. But not too bad.
A lot of extra driving. So.
Yeah, a lot of driving, a lot of traffic. So anyway, this week we read Motor Girl by Terry Moore, written and drawn. Because he's that awesome. So, and this one was an interesting choice because we had not planned on it, because I miscounted how many issues or how many episodes we were going to have, or that we were on. And I was like, oh, we'll do that one later. And then I realized, we have a hole in our episode list. So we just moved this one forward because I had just read it a couple weeks ago for the first time and was like, this is amazing. And John needs to read it. And so, yeah, we picked this one kind of off the top of our heads a week ago.
Well, when you said it made you feel the way it did, we'll get into that. That's why I was like, okay, well, we'll read it. Because I knew a little bit of Terry Moore and I'd seen a little bit of Strangers in Paradise, but I've never sat down and really read it.
Well, you saw I have art of him on my wall and stuff, so you saw some of that. But yeah, it was kind of a random pick because we hadn't decided on that one yet, because we hadn't have a list of ones we wanted to get to. But since I just read this and it was so good, I was like, John, you have to read this too. We'll bump it up, move it in there. And then I read it again and it was even better the second time. So I think it was a good choice overall. But yeah, so you want to give us a breakdown of what it is about, John?
Yeah, so brief synopsis is this girl has a
woman, John.
This woman has is like an auto mechanic, and she has a gorilla, we'll call him sidekick, but an
imaginary friend gorilla.
They don't know right away that it's imaginary friend. It's just it's a talking gorilla that works with her too. You're like, okay. If you don't read any of the synopsis of what it's about, there's a gorilla that's working with her, and then you find out later that it's an imaginary gorilla. Only she can see it, because there are other characters that come and play, and then there's a big government conspiracy and aliens, and
yep.
And it ends up being a really cool story with a really good twist, and there's a really neat message about kind of like PTSD and war and how it affects people, and it was really good. This was a fantastic comic.
Yeah, and this is one of the best. Terry Moore, I love his writing and art style and everything. He does a really good job of you're just reading a story and it looks normal, like the way he draws, and then it can get cartoony when it's supposed to be kind of exaggerated, and you're like, oh, that's funny the way he draws that, and then it can get super fucked up and bloody and crazy violent, and you don't expect that from it because it was just cartoony a second ago. And his drawing style follows the emotional arc of what's going on in the story, which is kind of unique for people, I think, or for an artist.
He can change it throughout, and that's pretty cool.
Right, usually in comics when you're reading it, there's if you go read an X-Men comic, Wolverine's face does not get more exaggerated as he gets more angry or whatever. And by exaggerated, I mean if she's mad, her mouth will get incredibly wide, or as she's yelling, very unrealistic for what you had just seen a couple panels earlier. But it makes you it fits what's going on in the dialogue. So it's more cartoony, I guess. It's like a Garfield comic or something, or the show Garfield. Where John's mad and he looks normal, and then he's Garfield, and so he gets that cartoony across when it's when he's trying to be funny or exaggerate certain things, and then it can be super fucked up and bloody and serious.
Yeah, all the war stuff, especially
and he just does a really good job of communicating emotions through the art, but also just being a great artist in in the other parts too, where you're just following someone walking around a room. You're like, oh wow, that looks really good. All the line work is really not like, and it's all black and white too, which is usually don't see too many comics that are black and white nowadays. But because he's his own publisher, and I think his wife is his editor, and then so it's like, it's just him and his wife doing it. So he's got can't color everything.
It would take him home much longer, but yeah, I mean, it looks beautiful still. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I love his art. His art is very clean, and it's just lots of lines and dark. He does a really good job of like shadows and stuff like that, and I don't know. He's just a great artist. My only one thing is this book didn't have it as much, but in Strangers in Paradise or in other like Rachel Rising, he's got like a lot of female characters. And sometimes they look like he's got a certain style where all his women look a little, like there might be two characters that aren't in the same scene usually, but then once they are in the same scene, you're like, oh, like which one am I looking at sometimes? But he usually tries to make it like, oh, she's got a scar on her face or something that's like obvious, like her eyes are black or so that way it's them. But he does like his women can look similar, but this one didn't have that because there's only one
main. Yeah, there's another, but she's an older lady, so
yeah,
you can tell.
So I bought, this was so good that after reading it digitally, I bought from his website the special just limited edition hardcover omnibus of it because it was so fucking awesome. But yeah, I was telling John how I got him excited to read it. It made me cry. This is like one of the few comics that'll actually like get an emotion like that out of you. And even the second time I was like, you son of a bitch. Like you got me again. So,
oh yeah, it got me in several parts. I would, like you said that, and I was like, it's a comic. I've never cried I cried at a comic.
Yeah. So it happens every now and then, not usually. Usually you're just like, yeah, Wolverine, kill him stuff or whatever. But, multiple times in Strangers in Paradise, I was like, oh man, that gets me right in the feels.
Even so, my favorite comic book character is Captain America. Mm-hmm. And even spoiler alert, if you've never read Winter Soldier, Civil War, the original Civil War line, Captain America, when he dies, like I was like, but I didn't cry at that, even though I've been reading Captain America since I was like 5.
Well, also because he ain't dead forever.
Yeah. So. But like, yeah, this one was very much heart tugging, so it was cool.
Yeah, and Terry Moore just knows how to write a really good story. He's such a good writer. I mean, like Strangers in Paradise is 90 issues long, and there's not a point. Like I read that series. I'll just say like this is how I got into Terry Moore. He's from Texas, or he's in Houston, I guess. And so when he did like a signing at Austin Books and Comics where I used to work. And I just met him randomly there, like, because he was doing the signing and I was working. And generally when people would sign there, I would, like, go get a book of theirs, buy it, and then have them sign it because it was cool to meet them and they're nice and you kind of want to, like, I don't know, have a good impression for the store and stuff. So I think they had just come out with the pocket books of Stranger in Paradise, which are, like, the collected editions, but they're in, like, smaller size pocket books, obviously. And so I got the first one and I didn't even know what it was. And I flipped through it. I'm like, oh, it looks interesting. This was like the first non-superhero book I've ever read. And it's like, and it's funny because it's like, it's a non-superhero. It's a book with mainly female characters. It's a book that's about lesbians. And I was like things that I never thought I would care about or want to read. Because I was like 19, or like I was just like, I want to read Wolverine kill stuff, Snicked or whatever, And I read that book that night and was like, wow, this is like, I couldn't put it down. I read the whole thing in like 4 hours, and then I was like, okay, there's 7 more of these pocket books. So I got all of them and read those, and then I think it was only on issue like 50 or something or maybe a little later, 60, in the 60s. So I started picking up the issues from there, and then I found like all the old back issues, so I had a full run of it and stuff. So it's a big influence on my comic book reading because up until that point, I had never read anything more than just your regular comic book, stuff. So, your superheroes basically. So this kind of opened my eyes to indie stuff. Maybe interested in like, hey, what are some other books that are out there? And I've read all of Terry Moore's stuff. I've read Echo, which was like, so all of his comics are about female characters in the front of it. Not all of them. I guess Stranger in Paradise is the main one that's like all LBGT as well. And so, so Echo is like a really good comic. It's about like a girl who gets not blown up, but like a girl who gets in the middle of like an accident at a government facility where she gets like superpowers from something that happens there. So there's that one. Then there's Rachel Rising, which is like kind of a murder mystery, which is interesting. It's like a whodunit, like who killed me, but it's about a girl who gets murdered and then she comes back to life, and it's like her trying to find her killer.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's really good. That one had some holes in it. We'll read actually like maybe the first couple trades or all of it if it's good enough, if you like it enough. But that one had some holes in it. I was like, I wish I could talk to him and be like, what happens with this character? And then he did Motor Girl, and because Motor Girl was only 10 issues long, I think it was originally supposed to be longer than that. But it, I guess, I don't know if it wasn't just not selling good or if he just wanted a shorter story in general. But this is actually a really nice run of his because it's only 10 issues long.
Yeah, and it wraps up very nicely. So
yeah, it's like it doesn't seem like it's going too fast. Like it wasn't supposed to be 10 issues long. It doesn't feel like he left stuff open at all. Everything's kind of there. For a Terry Moore book, it does feel like it goes by fast because it is 10 issues only. So, but it is a solid work all on its own. So that's why I had to buy the hardcover, and I love Terry Moore, and I can't wait. All right, I need people to read more of his stuff because he's awesome. So I'm glad you liked it, John.
Very much so.
But yeah, you want to go through the story of it?
Yeah. So we start off with Samantha. That's our main character, and she's actually working in looks like out in the desert. We don't know yet, but like some kind of auto repair shop, and she's got her gorilla best friend, and she's talking with, and just kind of day-to-day things. She's talking about like, are you gonna, like they talked about like, she was gonna date or something,
mm-hmm.
Get out there, she doesn't need to stay in and work all the time. And then we meet up with the
owner.
Yeah, the owner, Libby.
It's like an old nice lady.
Yeah, she comes to shop, and she kind of looks like one of the older ladies that's like, getting around places still, they're doing well, and just kind of like old and scruffed, and like doesn't put up with any shit. Yeah. Like,
she was funny to me because she's like an older lady, but she's like, you listen here, like she get in people's faces.
Yeah. And she can tell that she's obviously like a mother figure to her because they're not related.
Right. I don't know how she knows her. I think she just maybe heard about her in town or something, and then
because she went to work for her, and she's been working for her now because she owns the land and the shop. So it's
a junkyard.
Right? And junkyard, yeah, junkyard and auto repair.
Yeah, yeah. It looked like there was a bunch of junk there though, but
yeah,
I guess it's both.
Well, that was her. She worked on things throughout the whole thing. She was fixing things.
Yeah,
she's fixing things throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. So she meets Libby. So we're introduced to Libby, and you find out she had like that no one else can see Mike, who's the gorilla, and so like Samantha talks to her or talks to Mike, like in her head and sometimes out loud so that people can hear her talking to herself. But yeah, it's like he's an imaginary best friend kind of thing.
Yeah, and one time Libby pulled up for something, and she's like, "Who are you talking to?" And she's like, "Oh, sometimes I just talk to myself."
Yeah. So there's like basically from there it just kind of some guys come and they're like dressed in suits. They pull up, and apparently Libby's been getting talked to by this guy named Mr. Walden who works for the government. He's like, he doesn't work from the government. Like he's not with the FBI or something, but he's a contracted, probably like Lockheed Martin or something, one of those kind of people. And he's making some kind of weapon that the government wants. So he's trying to buy the land where she is because apparently it's where aliens
like to come to this area a lot. So they figure they'll buy this land and they'll put up the weapon here and they'll be able to test it out. And
they don't really specifically say where it's at, but I'm assuming it's like by Area 51 or something. So.
Yeah, because it's out in the desert, so it looks like New Mexico, Arizona area.
Yeah. So that's like they're trying to get her to sell, and apparently they've been talking to her before just this one time, but like she doesn't want to sell.
She's on the fence about it. She's like, I don't know, I have to talk to my other person, which is Samantha, because
she knows that Samantha isn't 100% okay, and you don't really know why at first. But basically, she's a war veteran who has PTSD, and that's why like Libby lets her work out there to because she knows she's not ready to go into society or go to a city.
Yeah, because
she's got such bad PTSD.
She has small interactions with people who need things and come out there, but then that's about it.
Yeah. So these goons come to, their names are Larry and Vic. Mm-hmm. They come to the door. They've been hired by Mr. Walden to kind of like strong arm her into selling, but also they have like a check in their hands. So it's kind of like, do you want this money now or not? And basically Libby's like, no, because she knows Sam's not ready to leave. And until Sam says, then she's not going to sell. So then it kind of like the comics go back and forth of just like them trying to get her to sell, and they have to, like, Vic and Larry have to go back to Mr. Walden and say, oh, she didn't sell, and he was all pissed off and everything. But in the meantime, I think in the first issue or the end of the first issue, beginning of the second, she sees a UFO, and she's like, oh my gosh. And then like the UFO crashes in her junkyard, or just outside of
just outside the junkyard. Yeah.
And like it turns out the ship has like sprung a leak, and so she like helps the ship. She's like, this isn't real, right? Like this is all my imagination, because she doesn't know what's real or not because of her PTSD.
Yeah, Mike's like, I don't know, but I don't think we should do this. But then they go and they end up helping the aliens.
Yeah, they just, I don't know how they knew what to fix, but she's like, oh, that's just this and that. And she like,
it looks similar to our such and such.
Yeah, so she just like plugs the leak or whatever.
And there's two little aliens in the ship, and the one kind of is hesitant but befriends her, and she calls him by the only word that he speaks, the sound effect. It's a bic, I believe.
Onomatopoeia.
Yeah, onomatopoeia.
It's like Bic, so she calls him Bic. And he's always like, Bic, 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 Bic.
This is cute because they kind of reminded me of the little Martians from Looney Tunes.
Right, but the funny thing is that's not what they look like. That's just how they present themselves to humans. But then if you see a shadow of them, it's like their actual self, and it's super like fucking creepy and weird looking. But really to us, they look like little cute gremlins or Martians or whatever. Yeah. So she helps the aliens. She like, and then it like cuts away. The alien like gives her a hug, and he had like he had oil on his hands or whatever. So he like grabbed her butt because he's like that high, like when he hugged her, did that. And then so in the morning when she wakes up, she was like, that wasn't real, right? And Mike's like, I don't know, but you got whose handprints are on your butt or whatever. And so it turns out, yeah, it was real. Everything was real. And that tells you, the reader, too, that, oh no, this wasn't like a figment of her imagination. So now she knows aliens are real. So like what happens after that? There's like Vic.
So Mr. Walden's pretty upset about them not selling. So they're like, Vic and Larry, you guys need to figure this out. Like, make that girl disappear if she doesn't want to go, because if she doesn't, if she's the main holdout for Libby to sell. So they go and they try to kidnap her. And like Vince is in the car. He's the big, kind of stronger guy, and Larry's like kind of like the smaller Weasley guy. So he's the one, of course, that tries to capture her, and she just clocks him square.
Yeah, she was a Marine too.
Yeah,
so she like, that's one thing they always underestimate her, because they're like, oh, this girl, whatever, and she's like a Marine, so she beats the fuck out of him.
Yeah, it fucking like breaks his nose. He gets back in the car. He's like, oh my god, go.
Yeah, get out of here. That's where like the really expressive facial stuff comes in because it's like he's like, get out of here, and like his face looks crazy and he's all wide-eyed and everything. Sorry, folks, we had a technical problem. So anyway, so they try to kidnap her and she breaks Larry's nose. And the whole time you don't know who these guys are really, but they're basically just hired hands. They don't know what's going on or what.
Yeah, they talk about later that they're just doing their job. They have no interest in what's actually going on, but they just don't want to lose out on the money. They want to make sure they get paid for what they're there for.
Right. So like they decide to like try to break into her house, and when at night, and they're going around in the desert, and then all of a sudden, like Vic's like, so Larry, when do we want to do this thing or whatever? And then Larry gets picked up by like a tractor beam, and he's like, Larry, and then he's like gone. So Larry gets abducted by aliens, and it was funny because when they show him back on the ship, he wakes up, he's like, what the hell? And he's got like a merman body. He's got like fish. He's like, what'd you do to me? And it's just like them fucking with him. Like they think it's funny to make him think that he's like half fish, half man or whatever. And then that's when you see like what they actually look like, because they present themselves as like the little Martian, Looney Tunes looking Martians. But then you could see their shadows in the background, and they're like all like crazy hairy monster things or whatever. So Larry is stuck on that ship now, and then Vic's just waiting outside, and Samantha drives by in the morning and sees him just waiting, because he's like, where the hell did Vic go? I don't know. But it's also, you find out Larry is Vic's brother-in-law, and he can't go back to the wife without him, because it's like, that's my sister or whatever. And so yeah, he's like stuck in a hard place. He's trying to figure out what to do. So he's just sitting there by the side of the road. And so she comes up to him and is like, what the fuck do you guys want? Did you guys have like a bomb or something? Like, why is your truck parked on the side of the road? Because she's like thinking, if they're willing to kidnap me, are they just trying to kill us, or what are these people doing? And she doesn't know that they're idiots who are just kind of hired to do this one thing, deliver a check. So yeah. And then there was like a heart-to-heart where he's like, oh, it's my brother-in-law, and he's not such a bad guy. But then like because she pulls a gun on him, she has a gun because she doesn't know why he's there. And then she puts it away, and then he like grabs the gun. So then it was like, what the fuck? You're escalating this. Yeah. So yeah, but then they kind of come up like realizing they're not trying to, like, he doesn't want to hurt her or anything. Yeah. And Larry's not there. And then I think he says like he got abducted or something happened, and she's like, by the aliens? And she's like, what? And
she's like, you're not messing with me, right? You're just making fun of me. She's like, no, really, the aliens?
Yeah.
I've seen them.
Yeah, so she knows about the aliens, and he does now. So he's like, oh, I'm not crazy, and she knows about him. And that's when she says like, or he says like, Vic says, we're not really that bad guys. We just, we're just trying to do a job or whatever. We're trying to do what we're paid for. And
Larry's a nice guy.
Like,
he likes
helps
animals
on the weekends and like rescue shelters and stuff or whatever. And so that kind of leads. I didn't know this, but the second time I read it, it had seemed like when I read it the first time that Larry's character arc switches from like I'm a bad guy to I'm a good guy pretty fast without a reason. But and later on we'll see he switches because of that reference of the animal. He helps animals on the weekends and he cares about dogs and stuff. So there's something happens later on where that's referenced, and that's why Larry switches so fast on the good guys, I guess.
So the next point, basically, Mr. Walden's sick of them not getting things done.
Yeah, because they come back, or no, Vic calls Walden and says, "Yeah, Larry's not here, and they're not going to sell." And so Walden's like, well, I'll go over there right now. And he basically just kind of like eminent domains right outside of their structure, like with the whole military and everything. He just drives up with the military. They actually have like a secret weapon that's actually like something, I guess it's like an EMP.
Yeah, basically.
And it like, basically if they turn it on, it'll take down anything that's flying in the sky, including alien craft. I'm assuming including regular aircraft too, but or human aircraft. But yeah, so they set up their shop there, and there's nothing anybody can do because they're with the government. And they have permission from the government to be there. So they turn on that, and like they see spaceships going. They turn it on. The spaceship crashes. Larry gets freed. I think when they drop off Larry, that's why they're there, right?
Yeah, they drop off Larry and they're flying away, I think.
That's what it is, yeah. So they're flying away, and then
turn on the machine.
Yeah, they turn the machine on. The spaceship crashes. Bick gets out. He escapes and goes into the house.
Mm-hmm. The house where the shop, then the junkyard.
Libby's junkyard place. House. And so he's in there, and Larry like just got out of the spaceship, so he's like, I need to get out of here. So he runs away from the spaceship into the house, and he sees like Bick's he hears something in the bathroom, and Bick's like taking a bath, like a shower or whatever. He's got the brush, and he's like, oh my God. And you actually see what Bick looks like for real.
Yeah.
He's all hairy and everything. He doesn't look nearly as scary as he did on the spaceship, even though he's still hairy and everything. He's smiling or whatever.
That was a cartoony moment. I like that.
Yeah.
It's like who's behind the shower curtain, and then yeah. Then the reveal, that was funny.
Yeah. So that was a funny scene. And then the other funny scene I really like is when the army guys come in, and they're like super cartoony army guys. They're like, I'm an army guy. I'm army guy number 2. I'm army guy number 3. And they run into the house because the government hears, there's an alien inside of the house. Because I think Larry runs away, goes and tells them, hey, it's inside the house. And so they go into the house without Libby's permission because they're like, we have probable cause, I guess, now.
Yeah.
And no one else is there. It's just the alien. And there's some old lady just sitting in a chair when they break through the door, and they just start shooting everything. And they, basically shoot the whole house up.
Yeah, he's like, I want the alien alive. And then they're like, they just start shooting.
Yeah, and they're like total dumb, like cartoony, army guys that are just, like, just kill everything you see or whatever. And then there's just some old lady sitting in a chair while they're shooting, and she's not even like phased. And he's like, sorry, man, we had to come in. We heard there was an alien. She's like, there's no alien here. And then as she's coming out, Larry's like, that's her. Like, because who else is sitting in the fucking chair? and they can like, change their shape or whatever. So then they capture Bick. And when they capture him, they like throw him in a cage.
Yeah. They take him back to their little camp.
Take him back into their area. And that's when Larry switches over, because he's like, what are you guys going to do? And they're like, we're going to keep him for experiments and keep him in a cage and everything. And there's like this whole little dialogue where you see his face kind of change as the dialogue's going. And you realize he's like, it's kind of like when I saved the dogs. So now he feels bad that the alien's caught, and he wants to save the alien. So him and Vic try to save the alien. And this whole time, Sam is out with Libby, and that's when Sam's at the bar, right? Mm-hmm. That was okay. So I can't remember when they start to reveal what happened to Sam, but basically, there's a scene at the bar in town where Sam's sitting there drinking, and she's talking to herself, which is Mike, and like there's a guy at the bar, and he's like, how come this broad don't shut up or whatever, she's crazy. And the guy that runs the bar is like, she can do whatever the fuck she wants because she served 2 tours in Iraq and was a POW for 2 years, and got the shit beat out of her, and so she can say whatever she wants to whoever she's talking to, and when she orders 2 beers, I'll bring them to her. So that was like one of the, it wasn't the scene where I teared up. I was like, oh shit. And then there's a scene where they show, I think during that time with Larry and everybody, with the alien, they actually show what happened to Sam. And basically what happened is she was clearing a town that was under attack, and she sees like a kid inside of a building by himself, and they're like, don't go over there, it's a trap probably. And she like, I gotta save the kid. So she runs into the building. The kid's there, and he's got like a tether on his leg that's like, she can't cut it with what she has there. And she opens the cabinet that it's going into, and it's a bomb. And she's like, stay here, and I'm gonna go get like metal cutters, basically, or bolt cutters. So she goes.
Well, no.
Oh, before she leaves, the kid's like, wait, here's my gorilla. He has like a little stuffed gorilla, and he's like, you keep him safe or whatever, and then when you come back, you'll free me or whatever. And then so as she's leaving the building, I guess the kid moved or
timed out.
I don't know, but the bomb goes off, so she gets. Like she was in the bottom. She didn't get blown up, but I'm sure.
No, but she got caught in the.
Yeah, she was caught just leaving the building with all the bricks and everything. So it blows up. She's got the gorilla, and so she like holds that with her, and she wakes up in the hospital. And she's like all fucked up because the kid died. She's still got the gorilla, and I think that's when she starts to see the gorilla. Is that when she? No. That's not when she sees Mike. So she's healing in the hospital, and they're like, "Hey," but it's not like a hospital inline. It's like on a base.
Yeah,
hospital.
It's still military.
So I think they're still in like enemy area. So they're like, "Okay, we got to transport you to a safer location." And while they're driving across the desert in a Humvee, they hit an IED, and it explodes. And so she got blown up twice basically. And that time when it explodes, the people who, I guess, set the IED or just someone around there that was like terrorists or people that were fighting, they capture her. And all she's got is, I guess she has the gorilla with her. And I guess they let her keep it. I don't even know if they let her keep it or if they just, that was like, she had it in her consciousness now or whatever. But that's when she comes up with Mike, because when they throw her in the where they're keeping all the POWs, like they beat her and they show her back a couple times.
Just
it reminded me of like Rambo, when like at the first Rambo when he's getting like the police are hosing him off and he's having flashbacks of the Vietnam people like hosing him down and cutting his back and all this shit and torturing him. It was like that, and that's where I started to cry. Like it just shows kind of what she went through, and it was like super fucked up. And then when it shows like the gorilla, like how Mike came to be in her psyche, and I was like, oh my god, that's so like so painful and messed up and like emotional. And yeah, that wrecked me for a minute. So yeah, that was like super powerful to me, that whole, because I mean we've seen stories before with PTSD survivors and stuff, and on TV and in movies, but something about this like obviously she's a tough soldier, but like how you get through it is by having like an imaginary friend you can talk to in your head, so you don't go crazy, but that kind of makes you crazy because you're talking to yourself, kind of thing. And I don't know, there was that, and then she has like a whole argument with Mike outside of the bar when she's leaving the bar, and it's like she says like, I'm fine, I don't need anyone's help or whatever, and he's like, well then why am I here if you're so tough or whatever. And it's like she realizes, oh, like I do have issues. And that's the other thing, like she needs to go to the doctor because she has really bad headaches. And basically there's a piece of shrapnel from one of the explosions, I don't know which one, that's been like lodged in her head. And you find out later that it's actually like really close to like killing her. And so she gets like really bad headaches and like debilitating. So yeah, that's like the whole core of this story is how she created Mike to help with her going through the whole prison thing.
Yeah.
And then
that's right, because one of the times Libby pulls up to see her, like she was just outside and like she fell down on the ground, and Libby pulls up right when she like fell, and she's like,
yeah,
oh my gosh.
Well, that's when she takes her to the hospital,
yeah.
Right? Isn't that when she actually like takes her to
the hospital?
Yeah. And that's when she goes to like the doctor for the first time, and you find out like how dire it actually is, kind of thing. I think it was weird. They showed her getting an MRI, and I'm like, well, she had a piece of shrapnel in her head. You couldn't give her an MRI because it's a piece of metal and it would just get pulled out of her skull. But maybe it wasn't an MRI. Maybe it was something else that was similar yeah. less deadly to you. So, but
yeah, because that scene was probably one of the first, because Libby's like, we should go, and she's like, no, it's fine. It's just really hot outside.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, you should drink water, but we should probably go to the doctor too. And then yeah, it's like, oh no, you're you're gonna die if you don't get this taken care of.
Yeah, and you don't know that she's gonna die. You just know she gets like really bad headaches, and you don't know she's gonna die until I think she either gets a phone call or I think after. So we should just start back up. So they come back home, and the government's there. They've captured Bick. So basically, she goes to like save Bick, and they confront her. And like Larry and Vic with a V, have tried to save Bick in this meantime, and they got captured too. So they're standing there with Walden, who's like, "You're fucking under arrest, and you're fired." And then as Sam and Libby are walking up to them, a whole like armada of alien ships comes, and so they're like, "Quick, turn on the thing," and then they do, and I don't know if there was like a defense against it or if it was falling down and it just happened to hit him, but it like one of the ships comes down and it smashes into the machine, and it also
it's coming towards him, and the guy and Walden's like, "Yes, it's working. Like, I'm gonna take them all down. Like, say hello to my little friend, basically."
Yeah, and he's like, "I'm fucking awesome," or whatever, and he like as it does that, it runs into the machine and it runs into him, and like that's one thing I like about Terry Moore is he has no problems drawing like gore or violence. He can do it cartoony or he can do it realistic, and that was when the spaceship like smashes into him, you just see like a dust cloud, and then as it's pulling back out, you see all these like tent lines and stuff that were wrapped around it from the little setup they had in the desert, and he's like one of his legs is missing and there's bone showing.
Mangled body is hanging on.
Yeah, he's all fucked up, and he's still like, "I did it, I found him," or whatever, and he's all fucked up, but he's gonna die obviously, and so then like Bick gets rescued from his guys or from his own alien people, and then and he's like, "Thank you," or whatever. But at that moment when everything happened, Sam falls down, and like she has like I'm assuming it's something like the piece moved or something because of all that action or whatever, vibration around her. Yeah. And so like something happened and she fell down and basically she passes out, and turns out Libby called 911 and they like put her in the hospital, got surgery right away, and so they removed the piece, and so she's gonna live and she's gonna be okay. And so you find that out, and then doesn't she have like a heart to heart with Mike, and then she like lets him go, right?
They have a farewell basically, and that part was really
when she's like, I'm ready to go or whatever kind of thing, or ready to let you go. It was like super touching, and just the way it ended. It was such a like well wrapped up story, and this one does move faster than his other books. Like the whole government part, normally in all his stuff, if there's government stuff involved, it's a little bit more drawn out, and you get to know a little bit more of what the government was trying to do. But in this, it's just more like short and sweet.
No, this was most of the government stuff was campy and cartoonesque, just to like move the story along a little bit.
And also be like, the government's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
But also, like it's the point of this book wasn't about the government conspiracy. It was about Sam and her going through PTSD and having to create Mike to deal with what she went through in Iraq or in the Middle East. Yeah. So, I mean, overall, this book is one of the most like compelling and like, I don't know. I haven't read too many books that deal with PTSD like this. The way they have her just with an imaginary, gorilla friend is, and that is the representation of her PTSD. Basically, it's like, a really good idea, and
it was cool because you don't like you were saying, you don't really see a lot of things that touch on PTSD or any kind of mental,
especially comic
issues going. Yeah, so that was really, it was really cool to see, and it was handled very well.
Yeah, and not only that, like even though she's got PTSD, she's still like a very strong female character.
Oh yeah,
and she's
badass.
Yeah, she's a badass, war veteran who's dealing with shit from the war, which is, I mean, you could say that about Rambo. You could say that about like any of those characters that are typically male in movies and stuff with war stuff. And this just felt really like true to that, like what they go through, or what you as maybe a layperson would think of just from movies and stuff, but like in a female character, and the way that it was dealt with is different than how a male character or whatever. He did like a really good job of writing that, I thought. And yeah, I like, and then, but the cool thing is with this, there's that serious, very heartbreaking PTSD story wrapped in a government conspiracy alien thing that kind of lightens it when it needs to be lightened, but it also hits you when it needs to hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just really well done. And
I think there were 2 or 3 times we're talking when you first find out that's what Mike is and whatnot. I was like, and then when she got bombed the second time and captured, I had a little tear. I was like, oh my god, what has this woman been through?
Yeah, you think that she just got bombed once when she got the little gorilla from the kid. Then you find out she was hit with an IED on the way to a hospital that was supposed to save her and bring her back to the States. And that's when she became a POW. And like what the way that they show like what she went through is there's like a picture of her in a cell, like she's in like rags, and then she's like kneeling in a corner, and it shows like a door open, and there's a dude with a mask, and he's got like a fucking bat with barbed wire wrapped around it. So you're like, okay, they beat her with barbed wire, bats, and whatever else they did. He didn't show anything else, but like, yeah,
we can only assume. I mean, that's
yeah. So I mean, it's just, yeah, that shit. The way he drew it and the way that he told that story was just so heartbreaking, and like you can't help but feel for her,
Yeah.
And then especially like the whole idea that she had to create this gorilla best friend or whatever just to keep her.
Yeah, for her to be okay.
Yeah, for her to like not just break down and freak out or whatever, and like he protected her in that time, and he's still with her because she hasn't dealt with any of that stuff. So, yeah, it was so good, and the art's fantastic, the writing's fantastic, everything's great about it. So everybody should pick this book up.
Agreed.
And yeah, anything else you wanted to hit?
No, I think we touched on all of it. I mean, end of the story, she lets go of Mike, and she kind of tells Libby like that she's ready to go out and adventure on her own, and so she kind of makes herself anew, and she leaves, and that's kind of where you see it, kind of almost like off into the sunset, but like off to start. I
forgot that she herself. Actually like says like I'm gonna leave now. So yeah, it's really good, and I mean it leaves you on a really hopeful note.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It's just a really good comic. It's like one of the best ways, because if to tell the story in like a movie, it would be more linear, or like it would be flashbacks or whatever. But it wouldn't be the way that they tell it in this comic is really nice as it's woven to the whole alien stuff. Because the alien stuff like really makes it. It takes away from the heaviness of the story nicely for you as the reader, so you're not just wrecked the whole time you're reading it. But yeah, so, and you could say that the alien thing, like if the alien's captured, he's going to be like a POW for the, like with our government or whatever. So, because they're just going to test, do all these fucked up things to him and whatnot. So, so yeah, so that's Motor Girl, which I would recommend. I think John would recommend. What would you give this book, John?
I think it's my first 10.
It's your first 10?
Yeah.
Wow.
I really like. I honestly, I will probably go out and pick it up eventually. Like it was really, really good.
Yeah. Well, you have to get the soft cover because the hardcover is pretty much sold out. But yeah, I think I would give this a 9. I get why you're giving it a 10. But I'd give this a 9 just because it's not like medium changing. Like it didn't change the way we think about comics or whatever. It just reinforced that this is how good comics can be.
Yeah.
And should be. Like a really good comic should be something like this where you're going to cry and you're going to feel it.
Well, that's why I gave it a 10 is that I have never read a comic like this.
Yeah.
And it was emotional. Even though it's in black and white, like it was just beautifully drawn.
Mm-hmm.
Everything had its moments. Like were saying about the way his style goes, can add that little bit of cartooniness to it, or add that violence when it needs to be. It's different and unique, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, and I want to give it a 9 because I saved 10 for those this redefined like Watchmen or something, or like Dark Knight Strikes Again, where comics were these silly books, and now this changed the way we thought about that whole genre, or like what is possible in that thing. So 10 is going to be hard, but this would be a 9.5 for sure. Like the second I read it, I was like,
no point wins.
Hey, whatever. Hey, John, I'll grade it how I want to grade it. Right? But yeah, this is why I was like, John, you have to read this. It's perfect because all of Terry Moore's other runs, all of his other books are just as good as this, but they're all 40 issues or 60 issues, or Strangers in Paradise is 90 plus issues. And, I can't be like, here, read
this in a week.
Yeah, read this in a week, John. So this was perfect because I was like, you get the full Terry Moore, like what it's like, how he is as a writer, how good he is as a writer and an artist, in a book that no one knows about. Like, it's not in the, the zeitgeist, or it's not, and no one's making this movie right now. Like in the comic books are huge, but no one has, that I know of. That would be awesome if they made this into a movie.
I would see that movie for sure.
Yeah, but this is like 10 perfect issues. It's like perfect length, and I don't know if Terry Moore wanted this to be 10 issues, but I think it's like a perfect, like, here, read this. It's not daunting to anybody who doesn't read comics, or even like John and I both read comics, but this changed the way we think about comics, like, especially for John, because it was a game changer for him. I've read Terry Moore's other stuff, but when I read Strangers in Paradise, that was a game changer to me because I had never read a comic about women, a comic like just about this girl's.
You never read a Wonder Woman comic?
I read Miss Marvel. I've read stuff like that, but I hadn't read a comic that's not about superheroes. It's just about two women who have a relationship that's kind of like, back and forth, and you're not sure, and they're not sure what it is, and all this stuff. But then in the background, there's this whole plot line that's really interesting and keeps you reading it, makes you fall in love with the characters more. And yeah, I'd never read a comic like that before. And so, this was just par for the course for Terry Moore. Every one of his comics is fantastic. If we can, I'd like to read one of the pocket books of Strangers in Paradise or something, just to give you like what this is like.
Definitely.
But it's probably too long to read for this, unless we feel like doing it. We can do whatever we want.
Maybe a multi-parter.
Yeah, we might do that. If you like it as much as I did, I read the whole thing in like 4 days or something, because I was like, this is fantastic. But
we don't have real lives and jobs.
Yeah, we don't. No. Maybe when this podcast makes $1 billion, we'll be able to take off and do that. But until then, John gives it a 10 and I give it a 9. But both really, really recommend it, and everybody should pick up Terry Moore's Motor Girl. Fantastic book. So on that note, I think
it's another one in the can.
Yep. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Well, folks, hope you enjoyed that episode.
If you did and you'd like to follow us on social media, our Facebook is Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, and our Instagram is @Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word.
And be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more recommendations to add to your weekly pull list.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.